So today I want to talk about mindset and the difference between, in a sense, the gunfighter and the knife fighter. Well, the gunfighter has generally been raised on the shoot center mass to compel compliance, shoot center mass to stop, okay? And when we look at even law enforcement, we look at it as, well, we don't want faces on the target because we don't want people to start associating the shooting with actual people. We know that if we read like books like On Combat, On Killing, Galvin DeBeck, Wes Doss, all these other books on mindset, we'll know that, well, there was a time and place where we shot bullseyes. And generally, that was during the Vietnam War. And then, of course, we realized that bullseyes aren't shooting back at us. Now, you may laugh at that, but to this day, law enforcement, certain agencies will shoot a bowling pin target. And if you get your rounds in the center mass of that particular target, you're qualled. Well, what's fascinating about that is the last I knew, I haven't read any type of use of force reports where cops have been getting shot at and or killed by fucking bowling pins. That's why I see the irony there. I'm a little confused, but it might be my high school education. So when we start to look at reality versus range training and police qualifications, we have to ask ourselves, what are we training for? Because the knife fighter looks at the body as comprised of timers and switches. A switch is mobility. A switch is my hand being able to grab my gun, defend myself, protect myself, or my lower region of the body being able to maneuver on somebody, like flank them, right? But a knife fighter breaks the body down and says, well, I'm either going after switches or, here's an idea, if I can, I'm going to set a timer. Now remember, both are in a deadly force situation. But a timer is anything that basically what you're looking at is you're causing the person to bleed out. So we're talking femoral and neck area. Now, when we think about that, that means that if we put a cut on those two regions of the body, the guy's not coming back. 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more, the guy bleeds out. And of course, you would have to look at that and go, but wait a minute, that means you're killing the guy. Yes, you're killing a person who is trying to kill you. I mean, this guy or gal who's trying to kill me at this point, we're not talking about a normal, productive member of society. We're not talking about somebody like, oh, don't worry about it, because once they're done killing you, they're going to teach your kids how to ride a bike. They're going to teach your kids how to tie a shoe. They're going to put your kids through college. They're going to pay for your children's education. No, that's not the kind of guy you're dealing with. Because that would be a normal person. A normal people don't try to kill you. Abnormal people try to kill you. So why am I going to treat a normal person, okay, any different than being normal? But society makes us think, well, wait a minute, an abnormal person should be treated like a normal person. No, an abnormal person should be treated exactly like such. And an abnormal person to me is anybody trying to kill me and or others. So with that said, when we start to look at institutional inertia is where we go, hey, center mass, center mass, center mass, center mass. And we don't think about other regions of the body like a knife fighter does. So when we look at a shooting altercation, I want you to start thinking about, where do I aim? Where do I shoot? Because if I engage the pelvic girdle, one thing that's going to generally happen is if I can get good, effective fire in that region of the body, I can drop the guy right there. If I can drop him, I can get to other regions of the body because he's now become more stable. If he is moving on me and advancing on me, then that also tells me that he could flank me, suppress, keep me behind my cover and concealment. Why is this important? Well, we can look at a law enforcement altercation in South Carolina, where an old guy in his 60s with a 30 Garand suppresses a law enforcement officer and kills him behind his own cruiser. Meaning the blood-curdling screams over the radio that you hear, you can't unhear in this video. Meaning Plax and Maddox, during the Miami shootout, Maddox was a former Marine Corps cook, and then he got out and he was an Army MP. Plax was a former Army Ranger. They were knocking over armored cars. This is back in the 80s. This is when the FBI, right after the shootout, moved to the 10 millimeter. And then after their agents couldn't handle shooting 10, which have great ballistics, this is the creation of the 40 cal Smith & Wesson. This is how this round got developed, is around this shootout. And when we look at it, we're talking about 4-1. So that means 8 guys against 2 guys in an altercation. And you never know who you're going to go up against. These guys took lethal rounds within the first 7 seconds of the gunfight. Maddox, I believe, was shot 6 times. Plax was shot 12 times. 12 fucking times. These guys had an aggressive mindset. You never know who you're going to encounter. So that's why we don't dick around. Meaning, if we look at things like the guys over at Dynamis, if you're getting attacked by somebody, and we're talking a hand-to-hand altercation, if he brings a 3, you're a 10. If he brings a 5, you're a 10. And if he's a 10, you're a fucking 10. And if you're in a gunfight and he brings a 1, you're a 10. And if he brings a 7, you're a 10. And if he's a fucking 10 like Plax and Maddox, you're a 10. So you at least are an equal playing field. So the point to all this is, when we're in these altercations, how are we going to conduct ourselves? How are we going to handle ourselves? Where do we shoot? What is our thought process during this time? Because what we do know is that they were about to escape in an FBI agent's car. Plax and Maddox were in the FBI agent's car because theirs was boxed in. They're about to leave, put the car in reverse and leave. When FBI guy takes his 12 gauge one-handed, throws it over the hood of the car and starts shooting at them. And do these guys leave? No. Get out of the car, because fuck that guy. They're going to go kill that guy too, because the rest of the people that they've already done isn't enough. And that's the type of mentality that you could be encountering, which is why you don't screw around with people. So, walks up to the car, empties his revolver. By the grace of God, it misses that FBI agent. Yet he's already still hit from an earlier altercation. Gets back in the car. Now, of course, they're slowly but surely starting to bleed out. And the FBI agent gets up and shoots them inside the car. Yes, they finally died through an intense amount of lead being put into them. That's how they died. They were on their way of bleeding out, just not soon enough. Which means that when we go back to that target that I know we like to use in our classes, which is a VTAC target from Kyle Lamb, he's got the groin box, the center mass box, and the head box. And we have our students shoot those regions of the body. Because we don't want you getting wrapped around center mass, because center mass is going to solve your problems. Center mass may not solve your problems. And in those situations, center mass did not solve that problem whatsoever. And since we know that bowling pins don't attack, we're also not utilizing bowling pins in our class. So we make our shooting shoot the pelvic girdle, center mass, and the head. Now, if we look at the pelvic girdle, is it a timer or is it a switch? It's both. If I can get good effective fire on that region of the body, then I can control the behavior, which means I can cause them to go to the ground. Benefit if I get them to bleed out. But if I don't get them to bleed out, all right, no big deal. I'll at least shut his mobility down, which means that he can't get any closer to me unless he's crawling. And distance buys me time. And time is extremely important, especially if I got to do a speed reload, my gun malfunctions, or I get 2 other guys that are bailing out of a car and then, of course, advancing on me. Meaning that would really suck to be getting advanced on by both sides. So we solved the problem. We engage this guy, we put him down to the ground. As soon as we put him down to the ground, then we can go for other regions of the body, like the head, or center mass if need be. Center mass, is it a timer or is it a switch? Well, it's actually both, but the reality of getting good effective fire there, if we're not just destroying that area of the body, becomes problematic. Meaning that this guy could still be alive. Just like Plax was, just like Maddox was. That's what center mass shots did. The head. It's an on-off switch. That's what it is. 1 minute he's on, next minute he's off. We're not talking about a productive member of society. We are talking about somebody trying to kill you or others. So you need to think about the moral decisions that you need to make. But if you screw around, it could cost you.